Hey everybody, Midnight Chef here. I am filling up 4 cups of water because we are going to make horchata. Now, horchata is a beautiful, beautiful Mexican drink. I think it's Mexican anyway. And it is a rice drink. And it has rice and cinnamon and vanilla and sugar, and it is just lovely. And really, it's lovely and it's refreshing, and you can adjust the amounts of sugar and cinnamon and all that stuff, right? And it's really not made the way you think it would be. So I'm going to show you how to make a beautiful classic horchata, and then we're gonna discuss some things afterwards, right? You really won't be sorry. As a matter of fact, here I've got some left over. I'll show you what it looks like. It's just like that. Here, let me shake it up. There we go. And it is great. It's kind of like a rice version of eggnog, if I had to give it sort of a flavor profile, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so
Eggnoggy.
what we're gonna do is you need your blender. You might be able to do this with a food processor, but I'm not sure. I never have. So most recipes out there, or all recipes out there, call for long grain white rice. Personally, I use brown rice because, you know, nutrition and all that, right? So I've got a cup of brown rice, and theoretically it should be long grain rice, but I've got medium grain here. Rice is rice, dude, right? So
Something like this,
I put that in here, in my blender. You notice how it's raw too? You don't cook the rice. I'm gonna put it in there with 4 cups of water. So that's 1 cup of rice and 4 cups of water. And like, if you've got a good sized cinnamon stick, put it in there. If you don't, then put 1.5. So I've got some pieces here, and then I've got a good sized cinnamon stick right there, right? So I'm going to put these guys in here like that. I'm just going to crunch them up a little bit by hand. It makes it a little bit easier. Always makes your hands smell so good. Now, if you don't have cinnamon sticks, you can just use dried cinnamon. It's okay, right? It's all cinnamon sticks anyway. Okay, now, I'm going to turn this on. And all I'm trying to do, this will go for like a minute or two, and all I'm trying to do is grind up the rice and grind up the cinnamon a little bit. And this is going to be super loud. I'm not going to try to talk over it. So what I'm going to do is I'll do this, I'll turn it on, then we'll pause it after a few seconds, and then we'll come back when it's done, right? Because you're not going to miss anything. Okay, so here we go. So all right, so it's been about, what, 1.5, 2 minutes tops? So I just blended all that stuff up, and I don't know how well you can see, but you can see that the cinnamon is now in tiny little chunks, right? So as soon as you get that, you're fine, right? All right, now, all we need to do now is put it in another thing, because this being rice water, it just has to soak for a while, right? And what I like to do is like to pour this into like a soup bane like this, but if you don't have something like that, then use a pitcher or something, right? Just pour that in there. Now, you've got all this rice in here that refuses to leave. So you actually have to put it in with another 4 cups of water. So I'll just put that in stages and use it to rinse that out. Slosh that around a little bit like that. Get those little pieces in there that don't want to come out. I actually got a piece of cinnamon in there that doesn't want to come out. I got a little bit on the lid too, so I'm going to go ahead and rinse that off like that. There we go. And I'm going to try one more time with this little bit to get that cinnamon off of there. It's no big deal. I'm just kind of OCD about stuff like that. If you want to leave the cinnamon in there, go for it. I may have to unscrew it from the bottom. Yep, it's not coming out. So now this has to sit for at least 3 hours. I usually soak mine overnight because I'm usually doing it for breakfast in the morning, right? But I'm probably going to finish this one tonight so it's ready in the morning, and it just lasts in the fridge. I mean, if you don't drink it all right away, which is really hard to do, it'll last in the fridge just fine. Just keep it in something covered up. So again, 1 cup of rice, whether it be brown or white. Again, I prefer brown. Put in there with a cinnamon stick and 4 cups of water. and then just add 4 more cups of water to it and just let it sit for at least 3 hours. This one will probably get something closer to 5 hours. And then we will talk about the rest of that later this evening when it comes time to film the rest of this video. Now let's talk about sweetening for a second, because when we come back, we are going to sweeten this thing. And this is where the recipes vary. This is sort of like bouillabaisse or something, right? Where horchata is one of those things that has many different recipes. It's more of an idea than an exact recipe, right? Kind of like a taco, right? It's an exact, it's an idea more than it's an exact recipe. And so horchata has many different flavors. Some people make it with almond milk instead. Some people make it with soy milk. Some people make it with, white rice or brown rice, and some I've even seen it made with cooked rice before, which will give you a thicker, creamier thing, right? Kind of like a rice pudding drink. But the sweetening can also be varied as well. I've seen people add a little bit of milk. I've seen people add a little bit of cream. I actually add just a tiny bit of cream to mine. Some people sweeten with sugar. Some people sweeten with condensed milk. If I didn't say it, we went to a restaurant a while back that served horchata, and I've never seen horchata in a restaurant before. I mean, it's just something that's just, I don't know if they consider it peasant food, but I just never seen it anywhere, right? And they sweetened with condensed milk. It's nice. It's really sweet, right? It depends on your palate. So that's one good thing about sugar and whatnot. You can use raw sugar or whatever, right? So depending on your palate, you can sweeten it as much or as little as you like. And that's one of the things that's grand about it. We'll talk about the sweetening a little bit more when we get there. I'll try not to repeat all of this, because it's only going to be a few seconds for y'all, right? So anyway, there you go. There's the first stage of horchata. Again, one more thing that you can't just make right away, but it's well worth the wait. It is a beautiful, refreshing drink, especially in the summer. Let's go ahead and cut this here, and then we'll come back in a few hours when this is done. Okay, and now we are back to our horchata, and it's been about 4 hours or so. And now, really, you can use the blender again, but that blender is so damn loud. I hate that thing. So I'm going to use a stick blender instead, and I'm just going to, I'll do this for a couple seconds, and then I'll come back, right? Okay, I'm done with that. That's been about 1.5 minutes on this thing. And again, if you don't have one of these, just put it in the blender. You may have to put it in there and shifts, right? Now, especially when you're using this thing, this is really liquidy liquid, right? It's nothing but water. So it's better if you keep it down, if you keep it all the way down on the bottom like that, because otherwise it's just going to throw this stuff everywhere. And sometimes it'll even do it then. It'll hit a big piece of cinnamon or something, and just water will just go boom, right? But anyway, so, okay. I got that done. I'm going to rinse off my thing real quick, because you want to always rinse off your blender first. Alrighty. Now it's time to pass it and sweeten it. So I'm going to pass it first. I've got this really fine sifter that I use for everything, right? They call it a China Cap or a chinois. We call it a fine passer. You can use cheesecloth. You can use something like this if you want to, but it's really, really small and you're going to have a hard time with it. But basically, you just need to put it through something really, really fine to get all of that rice and cinnamon out of there, because, you know, you don't want to drink all that stuff, right? So I just dump all this stuff in here. Got that stuff right there. Now, I know what you're thinking. All this stuff is already in here. There's no reason to dump it in here. Yeah, there's a lot of liquid in there that you're going to squeeze out of that. So it's really a good idea. In fact, I'm going to put some of this back so I can slosh it around and get it out of there. Like that. There we go, because I'll get another 4 or 5 tablespoons of the stuff that was in there. There we go. Now, I just pass. Sift and sift and sift and sift. And you see, I've still got some pretty decent chunks of cinnamon in there. See, there's one right there. So it's still hard to get a lot of that stuff in. And watch, as I'm pressing, go ahead and get it underneath here. As I'm pressing, you can still see how much I'm getting pressed out of there. And that's flavor, and it's food cost too, right? Now you can't really use this rice for anything because it's so incredibly flavored right now, and it's got big chunks of wood in it, right? So just compost it. If you use cinnamon and you don't mind cinnamon and stuff, you want to make a lovely curry with a cinnamon rice or something, which would be absolutely lovely, then yeah, use cinnamon powder instead of the stuff, right? And then you could have little rice powder or something, or you could use it to thicken a soup or something, right? But as it stands, this is going to be compost. There we go. Put that right there. I'm going to throw this in the composter. There we go. Now again, I say this every single time I use this thing, always wash out your passer immediately. You do not want to get stuff dried in that little screen. And this is a really easy clean, so it's not like I have to scrub it or anything. There we go. All right. I'm going to stir with this, but you got to wash it off because it's still got stuff in there, right? Doesn't do any good to pass all of that stuff if you keep the ladle with everything in there. And there we go. Now, for that amount, let's start with half a cup of sugar. Let's use a lid, which is probably about, what would you say, a teaspoon of...
Or a little less, yeah.
Of vanilla. I do like vanilla in my horchata. And for me, I like to put just a touch of cream. You can put as much cream as you like. And see how much I put in there, that's probably about 3 tablespoons. And so now I just stir until, now, it's not really going to pop. That sugar isn't really going to get super sweet until I add a little bit of salt. Just a touch more.
It's like about half a teaspoon?
Sure, let's go with that. Salt is a flavor enhancer. As long as you don't put a lot in there, enough to make it salty, it really will enhance the flavors of whatever you have, which means it'll take that sugar from being kind of sweet to being, wow, this is really good sugar, right? So, your horchata is served best ice cold. A lot of people serve it over ice. I personally prefer just to put it in an ice bath and serve it ice cold that way. I don't like ice in drinks like that, because if I let it sit too long, then it'll just
thin out too much.
It'll thin it out too much. And the rice will settle down to the bottom, and you have to shake it up. And if you got ice in there, you can't really do that very well, right? So now you just give it a taste. Lovely.
Ah, dang.
Now the thing is about this stuff is it's a little bit rough around the edges right now. Let it sit for about half an hour or an hour, and the flavors will mellow, and it'll be a lot better. So, yeah, so right now it's good, but there's just something about it that's just not right.
It's like the starch is still too starchy or something.
Yeah. Just let it sit, and it'll mellow out for a while. And let me show you what it looks like when it separates. This is one I made last week. And so you can see all the rice is at the bottom, the cream is next, and then the rice water is up here. So that's what it looks like. Don't worry about it. There's nothing wrong with it. Just shake it up before you drink it, and you're golden. Oh, one more thing. Sorry, I always forget something, don't I? Mm-hmm. It's always nice to garnish with a little bit of extra powdered cinnamon. And I'll take this, and this is going to be, I don't know, however much cinnamon you like. That's probably about, what, half a teaspoon?
About that.
I'll put in there. I'm going to give that a good stir. We've been watching Trevor Noah, so I'm trying, and he's doing his Scottish thing, so I'm trying not to go. Now give it a good stir. There we go. You've got to stir it kind of hard because the cinnamon's really dry, so it's It's really hard to mix in, right? It mixes in clumps. Don't want to do it like that. If it's too clumpy, and this one's a little bit too clumpy, then you can, not with that, go at it with a little bit of a whip, right? And just break it up some with the whip. There we go. That's beautiful. All right. Put this in the fridge. Let it sit for about an hour, half an hour to an hour, to let those flavors mellow out some. Taste it right now, and then taste it in an hour, and you'll see what I mean. It's not bad. It's just a little something, right? And that is horchata. It's extremely simple. I'm going to recount it one more time. 1 cup of rice with 4 cups of water and a cinnamon stick in the blender.
Was it 1 cup or a half a cup of rice?
It was 1 cup.
Okay.
And then brrr, right, for about 2 minutes, till the cinnamon gets kind of small. Add 4 more cups of water. Let it sit for a minimum of 3 hours. Last time I made it, I let it sit overnight. Take it out, burr it up again, either in the blender or with a stick blender for another couple minutes. Pass it through something really fine to get all those little bits of wood and rice out of it. Sweeten it. Add some vanilla and cream if you want. It's not necessary. Sweeten it with condensed milk if you want. Sweeten it with honey if you want. Sweeten it with whatever you want, right? And then let it sit for another half an hour to an hour. Serve it ice cold. A lot of people drink it with ice. I personally don't prefer it, but nonetheless serve it ice cold and enjoy it, because this is a tremendous drink. It is so wonderful and so refreshing. I can't say enough about it. You'll love it. And that is horchata.